My wife cheated on me with her boss, stole $200, $0 from our savings to buy a house with him, and now she's accusing me of fraud in a bitter legal battle over the property. I never thought my own partner would betray me this way. Hello, everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons, with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought my own wife would betray me like this. It's one of those things you hear about but never really believe can happen to you until it does. The craziest part is, I had no idea how deep the rabbit hole went until I stumbled onto it by accident. We seemed like a normal couple at first. Sarah and I had been together for almost 8 years. We got married young, both chasing our dreams, trying to build a life. I worked as an engineer, she was a marketing executive. We saved for years, dreaming of buying a house, settling down. Things weren't perfect, but I thought we had something real. But then little signs started popping up. She'd be on her phone more often, secretive. She'd disappear for hours, claiming she was at work or with friends, but I'd catch her in little lies. I remember one night, I came home early from work and noticed her phone buzzing nonstop. She was in the shower and I couldn't resist. I grabbed her phone, thinking maybe I'd see a message from a friend or something innocent. Instead, I saw a string of texts, not just flirtatious stuff, but outright conversations with her boss, Mark. It was clear they'd been sleeping together. The messages were explicit, talking about nights out, secret meetings, and plans for a future that didn't include me. I felt my stomach tight. My hands started trembling. I didn't know what to think at first. I stared at her phone for what felt like hours, trying to process what I'd just seen. How could she do this? How could she betray everything we built? I had always trusted her. And it wasn't just the cheating. I found out she'd been stealing money from our savings account. Over $200, $0, gone without a trace. She'd been secretly funneling it into a new house with Mark, her boss. I couldn't believe it. The woman I loved, the woman I thought was my partner, was stealing from me and lying about everything. When I finally confronted her, she tried to deny it at first. "You're paranoid," she said, laughing nervously. "You don't have proof." But I had evidence now. The texts, the bank statements, the transfer receipts. She looked me dead in the eyes and lied through her teeth, claiming she was just having an affair with Mark because she was unhappy, that she didn't mean for it to get this far. She told me she loved me, but she needed something more, she said. That she was just experimenting, that it was just sex, that she didn't want to hurt me. Yeah, right. It was all bullshit, and I knew it. That night I felt a flood of emotions: shock, anger, heartbreak. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I could have been so blind. I was furious at her, furious at Mark, furious at myself for trusting her so blindly. I remember sitting alone in our living room, staring at the wall, feeling like my world was crumbling. How could she do this? How could she betray me so completely? I kept replaying her lies, her dismissals, trying to find a reason that would make sense. But there was no good reason, only betrayal. And now I was left to pick up the pieces of what was supposed to be my life. The aftermath hit me harder than I expected. I remember sitting there that night, the house silent except for my own breathing, feeling like I'd been punched in the gut repeatedly. The betrayal wasn't just about the affair. It was about the money, the lies, the way she had stolen what we built together. I felt numb, yet every so often a surge of rage would boil up inside me, making it hard to breathe. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I could have been so blind to her lies. The next morning I woke up with that hollow feeling in my stomach. I knew I couldn't ignore this anymore. I needed answers, and I needed to confront her face to face. I called Sarah that morning, trying to sound calm but knowing I was anything but. "We need to talk," I said, voice stiff. She responded with her usual bitchy tone, trying to downplay everything. "What's there to talk about? You're overreacting as usual. I don't know what you think you saw, but you're mistaken." I pressed her, telling her I had proof, that I knew about the affair and the money. That's when she started flipping out, throwing around lies about how I was paranoid, accusing me of being insecure or worse, jealous. She kept insisting she loved me, that it was just a mistake, that Mark meant nothing. She cried, she yelled, she everything with that annoying tone she always used to dismiss my feelings. Honestly, it made me sick. I could see right through her. She was a master manipulator, always twisting things around to make herself the victim. But I didn't care about her excuses anymore. I was hurt, yes, but more than that, I was angry. How could she do this? How could she steal from me and then lie about it? I started digging into our finances, pulling up bank statements, and I found the transfers. They were done in secret over months, siphoning off chunks of our savings. I saw the house she bought with Mark, the new life she was trying to build behind my back. It was like a punch to the face every time I looked at the numbers. What made it worse was her attitude. She kept insisting she was justified, that she deserved better than me. "You're boring," she spat one day. "You work all the time, you don't pay attention to me. Mark is exciting and he's the real man I want." That's when I realized she'd been planning this for a while. She was done pretending to be the wife I thought I knew. She didn't even try to deny the affair anymore. She just threw it in my face like it was some badge of honor. The emotional toll was unbearable. I felt humiliated, betrayed, like I'd been played for a fool. I kept asking myself what I did wrong, what I could done differently. But deep down, I knew it wasn't about me. It was her choice, her selfishness. Still, the pain cut deep. I was angry at her, angry at Mark, angry at myself for trusting her so much. I kept thinking about the future, whether I should fight for the marriage or just cut my losses and move on. But one thing was clear. I couldn't stay with her, not after everything I'd found out. The trust was shattered, and I knew I'd never see her the same way again. After I gathered all the evidence, I knew I had to make a decision. Sitting alone in our house, surrounded by memories that now felt like a prison, I realized I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay. The betrayal was too deep, and the betrayal of our savings, our dreams, that was the final blow. I couldn't just walk away quietly. I decided I needed to fight back, not just emotionally but legally. I started consulting with a lawyer the very next day. The legal battle that followed was brutal, but I needed to set things straight. Sarah's version of events was all lies. She kept claiming I was controlling, insecure, that she was just exploring her options. She insisted she loved me and that she'd never cheat if I just paid more attention. That was her go-to excuse. "You're just jealous," she'd say, "or you don't understand how much I needed this." But I had the proof. I had the bank statements, the texts, the transfer receipts. I had her emails, her messages with Mark, all of it. I handed everything over to my lawyer. We filed for divorce, and I demanded full custody of our assets, including the house she bought with Mark, which she had stolen money to fund. I also wanted her to be held accountable for the theft. The amount she stole was staggering, $200, $0 gone without a trace, and she was trying to spin it as her investment in a new life with her boss. Throughout this process, Sarah was relentless in her lies. She'd call me, trying to guilt me, saying I was ruining her life, that I was just jealous of her happiness with Mark. She'd scream about how she deserved better, how I was a boring, controlling husband who didn't understand her needs. She even accused me of fraud, trying to turn the tables, claiming I was hiding money or tampering with the accounts. It was all a game to her, a way to distract from her own betrayal. I stayed firm, though. I knew the truth, and I knew I had to fight for what was right. I hired a private investigator to confirm her whereabouts when she claimed she was working late, and it turned out she was spending nights with Mark at their new house. The more I uncovered, the clearer it became that she'd been planning this for months, maybe longer. She had been living a double life, betraying me, stealing from me, and lying through her teeth. It was like waking up in a nightmare. The legal process dragged on for months, and every day felt like a new punch. I was angry, hurt, and exhausted, but I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I was done pretending everything was fine. I realized that the only way forward was to cut her out completely, rebuild my life, and learn from this nightmare. It was a bitter lesson, but I'd never trust blindly again. And I'd definitely never forget how she betrayed me, not just with her body, but with the money I'd worked hard to earn. It was her greed, her lies, her betrayal that brought this whole mess to a head, and I was determined to see justice done, even if it meant tearing everything apart first. The court hearings were a nightmare. Sarah showed up with her usual bitchy attitude, trying to spin her lies even more aggressively. She sat there, brazen, acting like she was the victim, crying crocodile tears, claiming I was trying to ruin her reputation. She everything about the affair, of course, but her lies fell apart quickly once the evidence was presented. The text messages, the bank transfers, the emails, it was all there, undeniable. She kept insisting that the money was a gift, that she was entitled to it, that I was just a controlling husband trying to keep her down. She argued that I was making her look bad, trying to paint me as some kind of villain. But the judge saw right through her act. The evidence was too clear. I could see the frustration and anger building in her face as she realized she was losing her game. Mark was nowhere to be seen, but I knew he was behind the scenes, probably sweating bullets. The worst part was the house. She had stolen the money to buy a new place with Mark, claiming it was their dream home. When I confronted her about it, she spat. "You're just jealous because I found someone better." She kept trying to turn everything around on me, trying to make me the bad guy. It was surreal. I felt my blood boiling every time she opened her mouth with her lies. In the end, the court ruled in my favor. They ordered her to return the stolen money, and I was awarded full custody of the house and our assets. I felt a strange mix of relief and emptiness. The fight was over, but the damage was done. She had betrayed me in the worst way possible, and I knew I'd never fully trust her again. Still, I was glad to see her get exposed for the liar she was. But the aftermath wasn't just about the legal victory. It was about the emotional fallout. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut so many times I didn't know how to breathe. I was angry at her, furious at Mark, and mostly I was devastated that the woman I loved could do something so cruel. The betrayal cut so deep that I wondered if I'd ever recover. Every night, I'd lie awake replaying everything, trying to make sense of it all. How could someone I trusted so much turn out to be the biggest liar I'd ever known? Despite the victory, I couldn't help but feel a profound sense of loss. Our marriage was gone, shattered into pieces by greed and betrayal. I realized I'd been naive, thinking love could fix everything. But love isn't enough when someone is willing to lie, cheat, and steal from you. I've learned that trust is fragile, and once broken, it's almost impossible to repair. Still, I'm trying to move on. I've started rebuilding my life piece by piece. It's not easy, but I know I deserve better. I hope no one else has to go through what I did, but if you do, remember, you're stronger than you think. Stand up for yourself, gather your proof, and fight for what's right. Because some people, like Sarah, will do anything to get what they want, and you have to be ready to fight back. The months after everything finally settled were some of the hardest I've ever gone through, but also the most revealing. I thought I'd be able to just move on, forget her, and get back to normal. But the truth is, I didn't realize how much I'd been carrying, not just the betrayal, but the sense of betrayal of myself. I kept asking myself how I could have been so blind, so trusting, and I realized I'd lost a part of my own innocence in all this. I started therapy, not because I thought I needed it, but because I knew I couldn't do this alone. Talking to someone who wasn't emotionally involved helped me process the rage, the sadness, and the confusion. I learned that trusting someone is a risk, but it's also necessary if you want to love genuinely. The problem was, I trusted the wrong person, and that trust was exploited in ways I never thought possible. Still, I refused to let her betrayal define me entirely. I had to find my own way back, piece by piece. One thing I've realized is how much money can complicate relationships. When Sarah stole that $200, it wasn't just about the cash. It was about the dreams, the security, the future we'd planned. It's shocking how greed can turn someone into a different person. I always thought she was ambitious, but I never thought she'd cross that line. Now, I see how vulnerable people can be when their desires outweigh their morals. It's a harsh lesson, but I'm glad I uncovered it before it was too late. I also learned that revenge, while tempting, doesn't always bring peace. I wanted her to suffer, to feel the pain she caused me. But in the end, I realized that the only real victory was walking away with my dignity intact. I didn't want her to win by destroying me emotionally or financially. I wanted to rebuild, to prove that I was better than her lies, stronger than her betrayal. So I focused on my career, my friends, and my own growth. I started working out again, focusing on my health, and slowly I began to feel like myself again. The hardest part now isn't the anger, it's the emptiness. I still think about what could been, the life we were supposed to build. I try not to dwell on it, but sometimes the memories sneak up on me, sharp and painful. I wonder if I'll ever fully forgive her, not for her sake, but for mine. Forgiveness isn't about forgetting. It's about releasing the pain so it doesn't control you. I don't think I'll forget what she did, but I'm learning to let go of the bitterness. Every day is a new challenge, but I know I'm stronger than I was. I've come to accept that some betrayals cut so deep they leave scars, but scars can also be a reminder of how far I've come. I've learned that trust is fragile, yes, but it's also something you rebuild piece by piece. And most importantly, I've learned that I don't need someone like her in my life. I need to be whole on my own. That's the real victory. That's what keeps me going. Looking back now, I realize how much this whole ordeal changed me. At first, I was shattered, a broken man trying to piece himself back together after the biggest betrayal of his life. But over time, I found strength I didn't know I had. I learned that trust, once broken, can be rebuilt, but only if you're willing to be patient and cautious. I also learned that sometimes the biggest lessons come from the darkest moments. The thing I want anyone reading this to know is that betrayal cuts deep, but it doesn't have to define you. I could let it destroy me completely, but I chose to fight for myself. I chose to rebuild my life on my own terms. That's what gave me the power to move forward. I also learned that money, love, and trust are intertwined in ways you don't always understand until it's too late. Greed and betrayal can turn a happy life into a nightmare overnight. I've come to see that the real victory isn't in punishing her or winning the legal battle, it's in reclaiming my own peace of mind. It's about realizing that I don't need her approval or her lies to feel whole. I've started focusing on myself, my goals, and my future. I'm not perfect, and I still carry scars, but I'm stronger now. I know what I deserve, and I refuse to settle for anything less. To anyone going through something similar, I want to say, trust your instincts, document everything, and don't be afraid to fight for what's right. People can be manipulative and love can blind you, but that doesn't mean you have to stay blind forever. Sometimes the only way to find your way out of the darkness is to face it head on. And when you do, you'll discover a resilience inside you that you never knew existed. In the end, I've learned that betrayal is the end of the road. It's a detour. A painful one, yes, but also one that teaches you about your strength, your boundaries, and your worth. I may have lost the woman I loved, but I gained clarity, independence, and a new sense of self. And honestly, that's worth more than any house, any money, or any false love. I'm moving forward now with my head held high, knowing I survived. And that's all that really matters.